Today, October 21st, 2025, an 8-day window begins during which no one can watch. 3I-ATLAS reaches solar conjunction 10 degrees solar elongation, below the rejection angle of typical coronagraphs from Earth, completely overwhelmed by scattered sunlight. But there are two platforms that could theoretically observe. Parker Solar Probe at 0.046 AU, Solar Orbiter between 0.3 and 0.9 AU, both with a line of sight not blocked by the sun. Both with instruments sensitive enough. Neither has announced public observation plans, which means we are either blind or someone is observing and remaining silent. On October 29th, 3I-ATLAS reaches perihelion, 103 million kilometers, 1.36 AU, orbital velocity 68 kilometers per second. Solar irradiance at this distance equals 33 gigawatts on the surface, assuming a minimum diameter of 5 kilometers. That corresponds to 1/3 of the total power output of the 94 commercial nuclear reactors in the United States. For 8 days, Hermann Oberth described the principle in 1929. A velocity change is most efficient at the point of maximum kinetic energy. At perihelion, the Tsiolkovsky rocket equation shows that delta V gain is proportional to current velocity. At 68 kilometers per second, the leverage is maximal. For a natural object, this is irrelevant. Comets have no choice over their trajectory. They follow gravitation and outgassing pressure. But for a controlled object, for an object that wants to change its course, for an object that wants to deploy payloads into different orbits, now would be the moment. Loeb has calculated the statistical probability that the timing is coincidental, that solar conjunction coincides exactly with the Oberth window, that the optimal maneuver opportunity occurs during the period of maximum observational blindness. The calculation is simple. Solar conjunction occurs when the heliocentric longitude of 3I-ATLAS and Earth differ by 180 degrees. This is a geometric fact of orbital mechanics, not influenceable. But perihelion? That depends on eccentricity, inclination, and argument of perihelion. Parameters determined by the ejection vector from the origin system, billions of years before arrival here. The probability that these parameters were randomly chosen such that perihelion and conjunction lie within 8 days, Loeb estimates it at under 2%. Not impossible, but statistically conspicuous enough to warrant documentation. This is Loeb scale rank 4, not conclusive for artificiality, but unusual enough to justify systematic follow-up observation. There is a method in statistical inference often overlooked, the cumulative probability of independent events. Take the 8 documented anomalies of 3I-ATLAS. Each has an individual probability, ecliptic alignment within 5 degrees, 0.2%, planetary encounter optimization, 0.005%. Wow, signal alignment, 0.6%. If these events are statistically independent, the probabilities multiply 0.002 times 0.0005 times more 0.006. That yields 6 times 10 to the minus 13, 1 in 1.6 trillion. But are they independent? That is the critical question. If there is a common causative mechanism, a natural explanation that explains all anomalies simultaneously, then the events are not independent. Then the cumulative probability calculation is wrong. The problem is, no one has proposed such a mechanism. Not convincingly. The nickel anomaly could be explained by exotic ice composition, but that does not explain the trajectory. The trajectory could be explained by chance, but that does not explain the nickel. The anti-tail could be explained by geometric projection, but measurements from Mars show it is not a projection, it is a real physical structure pointing toward the sun. Each anomaly has ad hoc explanations, but no single theory explains all 8 simultaneously. That is the problem. In philosophy of science, this is called the cost of a hypothesis. A theory requiring many ad hoc assumptions is more expensive than a theory managing with few assumptions. Occam's razor, the simplest explanation is usually correct. What is simpler? 8 independent, improbable natural phenomena, or a single, improbable artificial origin? This is not a rhetorical question, this is a genuine scientific question, and the answer is not obvious. Because artificial origin has its own costs. It requires the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence. It requires interstellar spaceflight. It requires motivations we do not know. These are large assumptions, perhaps too large. But here is what is remarkable. Loeb does not make these assumptions. He only says we cannot rule them out. This is a fundamental difference between it is artificial and we do not have enough data to exclude it. The first sentence is a claim, the second is science. In November, we will begin to know, or not, The problem with advanced technology is that it does not look like primitive technology. A probe millions of years old would not look like our probes. It would not transmit radio signals we would recognize. It would not maneuver with rocket engines we could detect. Arthur C. Clarke formulated it in 1962. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, but there is an addendum often overlooked. It is also indistinguishable from nature. If a probe is designed to look like a comet, we would identify it as a comet, unless we measure very precisely, unless we search for anomalies, unless we are willing to consider uncomfortable possibilities. The Allen Telescope Array has collected 21 terabytes of data from 3I-ATLAS, radio frequencies between 1 and 10 gigahertz. They search for technosignatures, for patterns that are not natural. So far, nothing. But that proves nothing. The absence of a signal is not the signal of an absence. Perhaps it is not transmitting. Perhaps it transmits on frequencies we are not monitoring. Perhaps its communication is so efficient it is indistinguishable from noise. Information theoretically, perfect compression is indistinguishable from random noise. Claude Shannon proved this in 1948. Optimal encoding maximizes entropy. It looks like thermal noise. This does not mean 3I-ATLAS is a probe. It only means that radio silence is not proof of natural origin. On November 4th, JUICE will fly past 3I-ATLAS. 64 million kilometers, not close, but close enough for multi-wavelength observations. JUICE has a UV spectrograph, an infrared spectrometer, a particle detector. These instruments could see something we have overlooked so far, an anomaly in thermal emission, an unexpected chemical signature, particles separating from the main mass. But the data will not arrive until February 2026. 3 months waiting, 3 months uncertainty. Meanwhile, telescopes on Earth will search for secondary objects, for fragments that might have separated during perihelion, for trajectories not explainable by passive dynamics. The Vera Rubin Observatory will soon come online, with detection capacity exceeding everything we have had before. If secondary objects exist, Rubin will find them. But here is the deeper question: what if we find nothing? What if 3I-ATLAS simply continues, unchanged, unremarkable? Does that prove it is natural? No, it only proves we did not measure well enough, or that we searched for the wrong things. This is the problem with absence of evidence. It is not evidence of absence. Karl Popper argued that scientific theories must be falsifiable, but the hypothesis 3I-ATLAS is artificial is difficult to falsify because every negative observation can be explained by "we did not search well enough." This makes the hypothesis scientifically problematic, but not worthless, because sometimes the most important scientific question is not "is it true?" but "how could we find out?" And that is perhaps the deepest lesson of 3I-ATLAS. Not the answers, but the methods. Loeb has developed a methodology, the Loeb scale, a framework for evaluating interstellar objects. It is not perfect. It is controversially discussed, but it is a beginning. Before 3I-ATLAS, we had no systematic method. We had only intuition and ad hoc assessments. Now we have a framework, incomplete but present. And with each new interstellar object, and there will be more, this framework will be refined, improved, validated, or discarded. This is science in action. Not the answers, but the process of asking the questions. 3I-ATLAS is now invisible. In 8 days, we will see it again, perhaps changed, perhaps not. But regardless of the outcome, we have already gained something. We have a methodology, we have a discussion, we have the courage to ask the uncomfortable questions. And that, ultimately, is more important than any single answer. The 8th day is coming, the data will flow, and science will continue.